Children, in this video we are going to study about the essential parts of the flower. So as we have already studied in a flower, the essential parts are Androecium and Gynostegium. Androecium is said to be the third wall of the flower and is the male reproductive part of the flower. So here in a flower, as we have studied, the outermost wall is the calyx, next comes the corolla, the third wall is the Androecium, and it is also said to be the male reproductive part of the flower. This Androecium is composed of stamens. These are the stamens. Okay, this Androecium consists of stamens. The stamens are also called as Microsporophylls. Each stamen consists of three parts. They are, this is the filament, this is the anther lobe. Okay, this anther and the filament, they are connected by a tissue that is called as the connective tissue. So in a stamen, this is this entire structure, we call it as a stamen. And this we can find three parts are there: anther, filament and the connective tissue. So anther, it is the upper solen part with microsporangia. Okay, microspores, they are present inside this anther. Filament, it is the stalk of the stamen, and connective tissue connecting the anther lobes with filament. Anther, typically they contains two compartments. They are called as the thecae. Okay, singular it is called as the theca. So each anther, they contain two compartments or two lobes. They are called as thecae. Okay, or singular it is called as theca. Each theca consists of two microsporangia. That is, in each lobe it consists two microsporangia, and the two microsporangia fuse to form a locule. Sterile stamens, they are called as staminodes. Okay, the stamens which are not fully developed, not well developed, they are called as the staminodes. Example in cassia. Distinct, when the stamens, they are free from each other, they do not fuse, then it is called as distinct stamen. Stamens which do not fuse with other parts of the flower, then we call it as free. That is, the stamens are not attached to the petals nor they are attached to the gynoecium. We call it as free. Episteminous, flowers with stamens that are free and distinct. So when the stamens, they are free and distinct, that is, their stamens, they are free from each other, they are not attached to any floral parts, then we call it as episteminous. Okay, so unsterile stamens, they are called as sterile stamens, they are called as staminodes. When the stamens, they are free from each other, they do not fuse with each other, then it is called as distinct. The stamens, when they are not attached to the floral parts, to other floral parts, then we call it as free. When the stamens, they are free and they are distinct, then we call it as episteminous. Fusion of stamens. The fusion of stamens fusing among themselves or with other parts of the flower. So fusion in stamens is seen in either the stamens, they fuse among themselves or they fuse with other floral parts. So they are of two types: phonation and adenation. Phonation means refers to the fusion of stamen among themselves. When the stamens, they fuse among themselves, then it is called as phonation. It is of three types: Adelphi, Syngenesis and Synandrous. So here phonation, there are three types: Adelphi, Syngenesis and Synandrous. Adelphi. The filaments connate, that is, filaments, they unite into one or more bundles, but anthers, they are free. So here Adelphi, when the filaments, they fuse together, but the anthers, they are free. The anthers, they are free from each other, then it is called as Adelphi. It may be of following types: Monoadelphus. Filaments of stamens connate, that is, filaments of the stamens fuse together into one bundle. They fuse together to form a single bundle. Example in Malvaceae, that is China rose or cotton, then it is called as Monoadelphus. When the filaments of stamens connate into two bundles, when the filaments they fuse together and they form two bundles, then it is called as diadelphous. Then it is called as diadelphous. Example you can find in Fabaceae, P and Clitoria. Polyadelphous. Filaments they connate into many bundles. Example citrus, bombax. So polyadelphous, when the filaments they fuse together and they form many bundles, then we call it as polyadelphous. So here we have studied adelphi. There are three types. Monoadelphous, that is all the filaments fused to form one bundle. We call it as monoadelphous. The diagram we can see here. All the filaments, these are the anthers. The filaments they fuse together to form one single filament staminal tube, then it is called as monoadelphous. Now here you can find in the next diagram the stamens, they are all fused together except one. All the stamens they fused, the 9 stamens fused together to form one bundle and one stamen is free, then this is called as diadelphous. The next diagram you can find here, the stamens they are all fused together, that is the filaments they are fused together and they further branches, then this is called as polyadelphous. Okay, next we will study about the Syngenesis, that is anthers connate and filaments they are free. Example Asteraceae. So in Syngenesis the anthers they are connate. The anthers they will fuse together but filaments they are free. You can find this in Asteraceae. Next Synandrous, the third type we can find Synandrous. Filaments and anthers they are completely fused. Example in Cochineae. So here we have studied the three types. Conation we have studied, there are three types: adelphi, Syngenesis and Synandrous. Syngenesis means the anthers they fuse together but filaments are free. In Synandrous, filaments and anthers both they are fused together. Next is the adnation type. Adnation refers the fusion of the stamens with other floral parts. Okay, the stamens they fuse with, they are attached to other floral parts. Epipetals, when the stamens adnate to the petals, when the stamens are attached to the petals, then we call it as epipetals. This you can find here in brinjal, the thura you can find here. Episepals, stamens are adnate to the sepals. Example Grevillea, silver oak. Epitepals, when the stamens they adnate to the tepals, when the stamens are attached to the tepals, we call it as epitepals, or we call it as epiphyllus. Next is Gynostegium, conation product of the stamens and stigma, that is called as the Gynostegium. That is the fusion of the stamen and the stigma. The stamen and the stigma they join together, they fuse together, then it is called as Gynostegium. Example in Calotropis and Orchidaceae. Next is Pollenium. Pollen grains they are fused together as a single mass. Example in Calotropis. Pollen grains when they are fused together to form a single sac-like structure, we call it as the Pollenium. Next, arrangement of stamens relate to the length of stamens. Based on the length of the stamens, they are of different types. Didynamous, 4 stamens of which 2 with long filaments and 2 with short filaments. Example Ocimum. So didynamous, that is two layers they are arranged. Out of 4 stamens, 2 have long filaments and the 2 stamens they have short filaments. So as a result, the stamens they are arranged in 2 layers, then it is called as didynamous. Next is tetradynamous, 6 stamens of which 4 with long filaments and 2 with short filaments. So 6 stamens are there, out of which 4 have the long filaments and the 2 will be having short filaments. Example in Brassica. Next is the heterostaminous. Stamens are of different length in the same flower. Example in Acacia. So heterostaminous means when the stamens they are having the filaments of different length, then it is called as heterostamens. Next, Anther types. They are of 2 types, monothecal and dithecal. As we have studied, In each in the anther there are two lobes are there. If only one lobe is present with two microsporangia, then it is called as monothecal. So the shape of the anther will be kidney shape in cross section. Example, you can find this in Malvaceae. If there is only one lobe with two microsporangia, then we call it as monothecal. This you can find in Malvaceae. And the shape of this monothecus will be kidney shape. So here you can find this is the monothecus. Next, dithecal. It is typical type having two lobes with four microsporangia. They are butterfly shaped in cross section. So here when there are when the anther they have two lobes with four microsporangia, so it gives a butterfly shaped anther cross section, then it is called as the dithecal. Next is the anther arrangement. Attachment. Anther attachment next we are going to study. So that is how the anthers they are attached to the filament. Okay, how the anthers they are attached to the filament. Based on that, they are of four types. They are basifixed, dorsifixed, versatile, and adnate. So here you can find the diagram. We'll see first when this is the anther. The base of the anther is attached to the filament. This we call it as basifixed. When the filament is attached to the dorsal side of the anther, then this we call it as dorsifixed. When the filament is having a slight contact with the anther, so this we can find that in the grass we can find mostly when they are pollinated by the wind, they have this versatile arrangement. A slight touch between the filament and the anther, this is called as the versatile. Next is the adnate. Now here the filament grows to the tip of the anther lobe. The filament is present in the tip of the anther, then this is called as the adnate type. So here you can see the explanation. Basifixed or innate. Base of the anther is attached to the tip of the filament. Example in Datura. Dorsifixed. Apex of the filament is attached to the dorsal side of the anther. Okay, the apex of the filament is attached to the dorsal side of the tip of the filament is attached to the dorsal side of the anther. This we can find in hibiscus. Versatile. Filament is attached to the anther at midpoint. Okay, just a slight touch will be there. This is called as the versatile. Example, you can find this in grasses. Next, adnate. Filament is continued from the base to the apex of anther. Example in Nilambu. So here we have studied when the filament is present till the tip of the anther, then it is called as the adnate type. So this is what we have studied about the Androecium. We will continue with the Gynoestegium in the next video.